Imagine holding a book in your hands, a beautiful, handwritten medieval manuscript filled with elaborate illustrations. Plants that don't exist, astronomical charts that make no sense, naked women bathing in strange green liquid connected by mysterious tubes, and page after page of text in a language that absolutely no one can read. Not professional codebreakers who cracked Nazi enigma codes. Not linguists who speak dozens of languages. Not artificial intelligence systems that can translate between hundreds of tongues. Not the greatest minds of the past century. For 600 years, this book has defeated everyone who's tried to read it. It sits in Yale University's Voynich Rare Book Library, available for anyone to examine. Every page has been digitized and posted online for free. Thousands of people have studied it. Hundreds have claimed to decode it. All have failed. This is the Voynich Manuscript, and it might be the greatest mystery in the history of human writing. Is it an elaborate hoax? A lost language from a vanished civilization? An unbreakable cipher protecting dangerous knowledge? A medieval joke that fooled the world, or something else entirely? The manuscript has driven researchers to obsession, destroyed careers, and sparked countless theories. It's been attributed to aliens, time travelers, and even Leonardo da Vinci. Every few years, someone announces they've finally cracked it. Every time, they're proven wrong. What makes a book unreadable? How can text that looks like language, behaves like language, and has all the statistical properties of language still be completely meaningless? Or is it meaningful and we just lack the key? Today, we're going to begin a journey into history's most mysterious book. We'll examine every page, every theory, every attempt to decode it. We'll look at what modern science, artificial intelligence, and computational linguistics reveal. And we lines try to answer the question that has haunted scholars for over a century. What is the Voynich Manuscript? This is the story of the book that no one can read. Our story begins in 1912, in the Villa Mondragon, a beautiful Renaissance villa in the hills outside Rome. The villa, which once belonged to Cardinal Altemps, had been converted into a Jesuit college. But the Jesuits were facing financial difficulties and needed to sell some items from their collection. Enter Wilfrid Voynich. Voynich was a fascinating character in his own right. Born in Lithuania in 1865, he was a revolutionary who had been imprisoned by the Russian Empire and exiled to Siberia. He escaped, made his way to London, and reinvented himself as an antiquarian book dealer specializing in rare manuscripts and early printed books. By 1912, Voynich had become one of the most prominent rare book dealers in the world, with shops in London and New York. He had connections to wealthy collectors and institutions, and he knew the value of a truly unique find. And in that villa outside Rome, he found something unique indeed. Among a chest of manuscripts the Jesuits were selling, Voynich discovered a curious volume. It was approximately 9 by 6 inches, bound in limp vellum. The pages were made of vellum, as well-calf skin, carefully prepared for writing. And those pages were covered with text and illustrations unlike anything Voynich had ever seen. The text was written in an unknown script. Not Latin, not Greek, not Hebrew, not Arabic, nothing Voynich could identify despite his extensive knowledge of rare books and ancient languages. The letters were clear and carefully formed, but they created words and sentences that made no sense. And the illustrations were even stranger. There were botanical drawings, but the plants depicted didn't match any known species. There were astronomical or astrological charts with suns, moons, and stars arranged in unusual patterns. There were what appeared to be pharmaceutical or alchemical diagrams. And most bizarrely, there were pages showing naked women bathing in interconnected pools of green and blue liquid connected by tubes and pipes. Voynich knew immediately that this was something extraordinary. But what? Inside the manuscript, Voynich found a letter. This letter, dated 1666, would provide the earliest clue to the book's history and create one of its most persistent legends. The letter was written by Johannes Marcus Marci, a physician and rector of Charles University in Prague, to the famous Jesuit scholar Athanasius Kircher in Rome. Kircher was known throughout Europe for his work on ancient languages and hieroglyphics. If anyone could decode this mysterious book, Marci thought it would be Kircher. In the letter, Marci wrote that he was sending Kircher a book that had belonged to a friend who had recently died. The book, Marci said, was believed to have once been purchased by the Holy Roman Emperor Rudolf II for 600 ducats, an enormous sum, equivalent to perhaps $50,000 today. Rudolf II, who reigned from 1576 to 1612, was known for his interest in alchemy, astrology, and the occult. His court in Prague attracted scholars, scientists, mystics, and charlatans from across Europe. He assembled one of the greatest collections of art and curiosities in the world. According to the letter, Rudolf believed the manuscript was written by Roger Bacon, the 13th century English philosopher and scientist. Bacon was a Franciscan friar who made important contributions to optics, mathematics, and experimental science. But he was also suspected of sorcery and spent years imprisoned by his own order. In later centuries, Bacon became a legendary figure credited with all sorts of magical knowledge and alchemical secrets. If the manuscript was truly written by Roger Bacon, Marci's letter suggested it might contain lost knowledge from one of medieval Europe's greatest minds. But there was a problem. No one could read it. The letter had passed from Rudolf to an unknown alchemist, then to Marci's friend, and now Marci was sending it to Kircher, hoping the great scholar could decipher it. Did Kircher ever try? We don't know. The manuscript ended up in the Jesuit archives, where it sat forgotten for over 2 centuries until Voynich found it in 1912. Voynich was thrilled with his discovery, but he was also a practical businessman. He knew that if the manuscript was genuine, if it really dated to the medieval or early modern period and wasn't a modern forgery, it could be extraordinarily valuable. But he also knew that its value would depend on someone being able to read it, or at least definitively prove its authenticity and significance. So Voynich began showing copies of the manuscript to scholars. He had photostats made high-quality photographic reproductions and distributed them to linguists, cryptographers, and historians. The response was immediate fascination and complete bafflement. Some scholars thought it might be an unknown medieval language. Others suggested it was an elaborate cipher. Some believed it was related to alchemy or Hermetic traditions. A few suspected it might be a hoax, though dating it would be necessary to confirm that. Voynich himself promoted the Roger Bacon attribution, not least because it made the manuscript more marketable. A book by Roger Bacon, especially one containing secret knowledge, would be worth a fortune. But he had no proof beyond the letter from 1666. For the next several decades, the manuscript passed through various hands. Voynich sold it to a collector. After Voynich's death in 1930, his widow Ethel inherited it. She eventually sold it to a New York antiquarian book dealer named Hans Kraus. Kraus hoped to sell it for a fortune, but despite its fame, he couldn't find a buyer willing to pay his asking price. In 1969, Kraus donated the manuscript to Yale University's Beinecke Rare Book and Manuscript Library, where it remains today, catalogued as MS 408. By that time, the manuscript had become famous or infamous. It had acquired the name Voynich Manuscript after its modern discoverer, and it had become known as the most mysterious book in the world. Dozens of people had tried to decode it. All had failed. The mystery was only deepening. Who wrote it? When? Why? What does it say? Let's start by looking at what the manuscript actually contains. Because once you see the pages for yourself, you'll understand why this mystery has obsessed people for over a century. The Voynich Manuscript as it exists today contains 240 pages, though some pages are clearly missing based on the numbering system. The pages are made of vellum calf skin carefully prepared for writing. Each page measures about 6 by 9 inches, a common size for medieval and early modern manuscripts. The book has been divided by scholars into several distinct sections based on the illustrations and apparent content. What immediately strikes anyone who looks at the manuscript is how carefully and beautifully it's made. This isn't a rough draft or a casual document. The writing is consistent throughout, suggesting either a single scribe or multiple scribes carefully imitating the same hand. The illustrations are detailed and professionally drawn. Whatever this book is, significant time, skill, and resources went into creating it. The ink is consistent throughout, showing no signs of forgery or later editions. The vellum pages show appropriate aging. Everything about the physical manuscript suggests it was created as a unified work during a single time period. But what that work is remains completely mysterious. Let's walk through each section and see what we find. The first and largest section of the manuscript is what scholars call the herbal or botanical section. It consists of about 130 pages, each featuring a drawing of a plant accompanied by several paragraphs of text in the unknown script. At first glance, this looks like a medieval herbal type of book that was extremely common from antiquity through the early modern period. Herbals described plants and their medicinal or practical uses. Every monastery, medical school, and educated household would have had at least one herbal. Wealthy patrons commissioned beautifully illustrated herbals as showpieces. If the Voynich manuscript is a herbal, it fits perfectly into a well-known medieval genre. The problem is that the plants don't exist. Look at any page from this section. You'll see a plant with roots, stem, leaves, and often flowers or seeds. The drawing style is consistent with medieval botanical illustration. But try to identify the species and you'll fail. Some plants have features that resemble real species, a leaf shape similar to a sunflower, roots that look like ginseng, but the combinations are wrong. No real plant has that particular combination of leaves, flowers, and roots. Botanists have spent decades trying to identify these plants. A few drawings have been tentatively matched to real species, but most haven't. The plants look plausible but impossible, like someone drew them from descriptions of plants without ever seeing the plants themselves, or like someone deliberately combined features from different plants to create fictional species. Some plants have bizarre features. One appears to have multiple root systems. Another has flowers that transform into something resembling a lobster or scorpion. Several have geometric or architectural elements, perfectly circular flowers, leaves arranged in unnatural patterns. The accompanying text varies in length. Some plant entries have just a few lines, others have multiple paragraphs. The text blocks are clearly associated with specific plants, suggesting descriptions, uses, or properties. If we could read this section, we would presumably learn what these plants are called, what they're used for, and how to identify or prepare them, but the text remains impenetrable. Some researchers have suggested that the plants are symbolic rather than literal, that they represent alchemical processes, astrological correspondence, or mystical concepts rather than actual botanical species. Others think the artist simply wasn't very good at drawing plants, or was working from distant memory, or was intentionally obscuring real plants to protect secret knowledge. But none of these explanations fully satisfies. Because while the plants are strange, they're not random. They have an internal consistency, a logic to their construction, even if we can't understand it. After the herbal section comes what appears to be astronomical or astrological material. This section includes circular diagrams, some elaborately detailed, showing what appear to be celestial bodies, zodiac symbols, and systematic arrangements of the mysterious text. One series of pages shows 12 circular diagrams, each apparently corresponding to a month or zodiac sign. Each diagram has a central sun or star motif surrounded by groups of small female figures, naked women, each labeled with a single word in the Voynich script. Around the outer ring are what look like zodiac symbols, though some don't match the standard Western zodiac exactly. These diagrams could be astrological charts showing planetary positions, medical astrology connecting zodiac signs to body parts or treatments, or calendrical information. In the medieval period, astronomy and astrology were not clearly distinguished. Books on celestial matters routinely combined astronomical observation with astrological interpretation and calendrical calculation. Other pages in this section show elaborate fold-out diagrams. One spectacular fold-out page, when fully opened, reveals a large circular rosette design with intricate details. But the botanical illustrations, strange as they are nothing compared to what comes next. The next section of the manuscript contains images so bizarre, so utterly inexplicable, that when researchers first examined them, they questioned whether they were looking at a medical text, an alchemical diagram, or something else entirely. Naked women, dozens of them, bathing in pools of green liquid, connected by elaborate systems of tubes and pipes that shouldn't exist in medieval architecture. What are these diagrams? Why are they in this manuscript? And what do they tell us about the mysterious purpose of this book? Join us in the next episode as we explore the strangest pages in the Voynich Manuscript and dive deeper into the mystery of what this book actually contains. Please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel. While you're at it, smash that like button, leave a comment with your feedback, and turn on notifications.